If asking for help feels harder than doing everything alone, this might explain why. You know that moment when you're overwhelmed, tired, maybe even close to breaking, and someone says, "Why didn't you just ask for help?" And instead of answering, you just shrug or say, "I got it," even when you clearly don't. Yeah, that's not independence. That's something else. Because people who struggle to ask for help aren't just used to doing things alone. They're wired that way for a reason. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Asking for help is not just a practical action, it's emotional exposure. Think about it. When you ask for help, you're not just saying, "I need assistance." You're saying, "I can't handle this alone. I'm not in control right now. I need someone." And for some people, that feels dangerous, not because they don't trust people, but because at some point, trust didn't work. Maybe you asked for help before and no one showed up, or they did but made you feel weak for needing it, or worse, they helped and then reminded you of it later. So your brain learned something quietly. Don't rely on anyone. Psychologists call this learned self-reliance. When your environment teaches you that depending on others is unreliable, your mind adapts. Instead of asking, you handle it. Instead of sharing, you carry it. Instead of reaching out, you figure it out alone. And over time, that becomes your identity. You become the strong one, the independent one, the one who doesn't need anyone. And from the outside, that looks impressive. But internally, it feels like pressure. Because here's what people don't see. Doing everything alone doesn't mean it's easy. It just means you stopped expecting help. And that changes how you experience everything. Problems feel heavier. Decisions feel lonelier. Stress feels constant because there's no release, no sharing, no emotional offload. Just you and everything you're carrying. And here's where it gets deeper. For some people, it's not just about trust, it's about control. When you rely on others, you introduce uncertainty. Will they show up? Will they do it right? Will they understand? And if you've been disappointed before, your brain chooses certainty over connection. I'll just do it myself. Not because it's better, but because it's predictable. And predictable feels safe. But there's another layer most people miss. Some people don't ask for help because they don't feel allowed to need it. Maybe growing up, you were the one who had to be mature, the one who handled things early, the one who didn't cause problems. So needing help felt like failure, like you were doing something wrong. So instead of asking, you learned to suppress, to minimize, to say, "It's not that bad," even when it is. And over time, you stop recognizing your own limits because you've trained yourself to ignore them. And here's the part that hits most people. Just because you can handle everything alone doesn't mean you're supposed to. But when you've been doing it for so long, asking for help doesn't feel natural. It feels uncomfortable, awkward, almost wrong. Like you're breaking a rule no one ever explained. So you hesitate. You think about asking, but don't. You type the message and delete it. You consider opening up and change the subject instead. Not because you don't need help, but because your brain is still protecting you from something that already happened. And here's the shift most people never make. Struggling to ask for help is not a personality trait. It's a pattern. And patterns can change, but only when you see them clearly. Because you're not too independent. You're adapted to situations where help wasn't reliable, where vulnerability wasn't safe, where depending on others felt risky. And that version of you, it did exactly what it needed to survive. But you're not there anymore. And maybe, just maybe, You don't have to do everything alone now. Not everything, not all at once, but something. Because the ability to ask for help isn't weakness, it's trust. And trust doesn't start with everyone. It starts small, with one person, one moment, one honest sentence. So tell me, when was the last time you actually asked for help? And if this felt a little too accurate, the next video might explain something about you've never been able to put into words. Click it. You'll understand yourself differently.